The content of this podcast might not be suitable for your workplace or for your kids. So take this moment right now. We're going to take a moment of silence right now together. Ready? We're going to take a moment of silence while you go and get your stuff together. Ready? Go.
Sex.
That was not a moment of silence.
Maybach music.
So in love with you to the end of time. Hedge of protection in between the line. Nothing better than us. People wish that everlasting love made me a Democrat. Unconditional, but you get it that. Count on me, I'll be there. Give it rap. From God to become one in bodies. Touch to the morning sun.
Hey guys, this is Matthew.
And I'm Sasha, and you're listening to Crazy Love Stories.
In my therapy practice, I hear a lot of crazy stories.
And as a journalist, I have to tell some of those stories.
We've got a good show for you guys. When it comes to sex, how do you figure out what you should and should not do?
And Steve Harvey is known for a lot of things, including the 90-day rule. We'll talk about that too. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Crazy Love Stories is a Simon Says Creative Works production. Our theme music is composed by Jordan J. River. Follow us on Twitter at Crazy Love Stories. That's LUV. For more dating and relationship advice, check out New Perspectives by Matt Phifer. Visit his website at newperspectivesdating.com.
All right, so I think it's important to start with some factual information. I wanted you to talk about the top 5 challenges that couples face in the bedroom. So let's get into it.
Okay, absolutely.
First one is mismatched sexual desire.
Yes, it's a big one. People call this a sexless relationship, a sexless marriage. And what people get confused about is that they're like, oh, we have sex, every once in a while, so it can't be sexless. But the reality of it is that the person who has the higher sexual drive, who is frustrated, would consider it to be sexless. So it, in the pure definition, if they were coming to me in my practice, they are in a sexless marriage.
So you can have one partner that's got a high sex drive, another partner that's low, even though they're having sex maybe, twice a week, once a week, maybe something that they've worked out. Perhaps that partner with the higher sex drive is not satisfied.
Correct.
And that's where the mismatch comes into play.
Correct.
And that's, to you, still a sexless relationship.
By definition, yes.
By definition. And so what do you tell a couple that's facing that?
They have to find some sort of compromise. What I typically tell people is that the person with the high drive would have to come up with a number that they are satisfied with, that would keep them satisfied. The person with the low drive would come up with a number that keeps them satisfied, and then you basically cut that in half. You take the difference between the two, you meet in the middle, and you discuss ways that you can make that possible. So maybe there's other ways for the person with the higher drive to find fulfillment in other ways. Maybe there's some hot and heavy makeout sessions, or maybe they take care of themselves through masturbation. And the person with the low sex drive, they have to find some other ways to increase that. Maybe there needs to be more foreplay. Maybe there needs to be more dates. There could be more cuddling involved. There could be more words of affirmation, things of that nature. Just anything to kind of get them aroused. Or they have to find things that do arouse them. Or the times that they do have even just a slight arousal, they initiate.
Mm-hmm. Number 2 on our list is when a life event changes a routine.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a new baby. That's a big one. We hear about that all the time. Moving in together for the first time, right? You used to have your own place. She had her own place, and now you're living together. Now you're doing that, that cohabitating, right? Why does that affect a sexual relationship so often?
Anytime your workload changes, it's going to change your appetite for sex. It's going to change your drive. Anytime you're tired, or on the flip side, if you have more energy, They can change your drive, I don't want to say for the better, but increase your sex drive because you naturally have more energy. So let's say someone who works overnights and they're tired throughout the day, and then they finally get their wish and they work days. Well, that person might all of a sudden have an increase in sex drive, and it can play a different dynamic, different role within the couple. And or on the flip side, you have a new job, you have a longer commute, you're in traffic more often, and someone who has a higher sex drive, or a couple who has the same sexual desires, all of a sudden that flip-flops, or like you said, a baby comes into the mix.
Right.
You know, the one or both people are up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden that dynamic changes a lot.
Taking care of a baby takes so much out of you. I know a lot of people, especially when it's their first child, you are so shocked as to, like, I mean, you hear it all the time. You've heard it before. Everyone who has a kid has heard before. Oh, you know, say goodbye to sleep, and, you know, this is it. And so I think it's just this big shock when you finally take that step and you have this child that's not sleeping. It's draining. It's
not only draining, but let's just be honest, kids are not sexy. There's nothing sexy about a child.
Yeah.
There's nothing sexy about a sick child being in your bed, being in your room with a crib next to you. There's nothing sexy about it. A lot of times women complain about not feeling sexy after having a baby because the body changes. So there's definitely a lot of different dynamics that come to play when it comes to change of responsibility, or when you bring a child into the mix.
I know I damn sure did not feel sexy when I was wearing t-shirts full of drool and throw up, and yeah, it was just not cute.
You're always sexy to me.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Number 3 on Matt's list of the top 5 reasons why couples have sexual challenges is initiating sex. Tell us what you meant by that.
Everyone wants to feel desired at some point in time. Everyone has a need to feel loved and wanting to be loved. It's one of our basic needs as a human. And when someone is constantly the one that is, and typically it's the male that is initiating, and every once in a while he's going to want that to be reciprocated. It doesn't have to be as much as he does, but he definitely wants to be thrown down on the couch every once in a while.
He wants to feel wanted.
Right.
Right? And so she's got to come after him sometimes.
Right. And when that doesn't happen, a lot of times it leaves a male, or let me take the male out of it, because it can go either way. It leaves people feeling like they're wanting more, or like they're less than desired. Anytime you feel left feeling unfulfilled, every single thing that you see is appealing to you.
Right.
So if you're hungry, every single restaurant you see looks appealing. Everything on the menu looks appealing to you. And when you feel unfulfilled sexually, all of a sudden, for guys, a bunch of females look appealing. For females, a bunch of different guys look very appealing. And that's how you lead to one of the next challenges is cheating, or the desire to have an open relationship.
Right. Yes. Cheating. A cheating partner. Obviously, that sounds like an obvious sexual challenge to me. I personally think it's a deal breaker, but for people that, you know, want to work through it, what do you tell them in a sex therapy session?
It's more than I can get into right now. A lot of trust needs to be built again. So what it leads to is people wanting and needing a desire to feel loved, and sometimes it leads to a craving of wanting to be with someone else in a different type of relationship, sometimes cheating, or sometimes wanting or asking to be in an open relationship.
So they've not necessarily cheated yet, but they are definitely looking at that as an option, because they're just not satisfied.
Either cheating or leaving.
Or leaving the relationship. And the number 5 reason or challenge that couples go to see therapists for when it comes to sex as pornography and other sexual addictions.
Pornography can certainly spice up the bedroom, but it can certainly leave the bedroom very flat as well, because pornography can lead to a fantasy. I'm going to use men as an example because it's typically men who are watching pornography, not that women don't. But it leaves you with this expectation that every single thing is going to work in your favor, that everything is going to be so amazing, not that sex isn't amazing in and of itself, but pornography is a fantasy, and it leaves a fantasy in the minds of people, and they wait for that fantasy to be fulfilled in the bedroom. When that fantasy isn't fulfilled the same way that it is on a movie, then it leaves them unfulfilled.
It feels like,
right,
yeah, like it just fell flat,
right.
basically.
It'd basically be like watching some sort of action film, and you think that that's real life, and
right.
it's really not.
So when I was single, one of the things I admittedly did was I spent a lot of time at the library and at bookstores. One of the reasons I was bringing my daughters to the library a lot, just to, get books and play games and such. But I would find myself in the self-help aisles.
Really?
And in the relationship aisles. And I'll never forget when I picked up, I did it, I went there, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man by Steve Harvey. It was about 2.5 years ago. And it was interesting. I don't know if I've ever read a book so fast in my life. I was done that book in about 2 days. But he had a lot of advice in there. Some of it I questioned whether I should follow or not. Like, he's very big on the 90-day rule.
Okay.
Very big on that.
Wait a minute. It has not been 90 days into this podcast, so I don't know if I feel comfortable talking about sex yet.
Be quiet.
We're not there yet.
Anyway, since one of us wants to be serious right now, 2 things stuck out. He was talking about how soon you should introduce your kids to your man, if you have kids, which we will discuss in another episode, a future episode of Crazy Love Stories. But what really caught my eye was this whole 90-day concept. Is that a real thing? Like 90 days? And he had it broken down as to like the reasons why and expectations in month 1, month 2, month 3. And I want to know from you, how soon is too soon to do the deed with someone you'd start dating?
I have been waiting for so long to talk about the 90-day rule. You don't even know how long I've been waiting to talk about this. So first of all, let me jump right off the bat and let me just call out some of you women anyway. Most women who talk about and preach about the 90-day rule can't wait 90 days themselves. So let's just put that out there real quick. Second of all, when it comes to the 90-day rule, or any rule for that matter, the person that you are in the quote-unquote relationship with has to share the same exact value that you do. So if you feel like you want to wait 90 days or until you're committed, or wait till marriage, you want to wait 10 years, you want to wait 90 years, it doesn't matter. The person that you're with and the person that you're talking to also has to have those same type of convictions. If they don't, the 90-day rule is not going to work. Waiting till marriage is not going to work, because they don't. When it comes to sex, some of the most important things is that you share the same value, and so if they don't value the 90-day rule or waiting, and then it's just not going to happen.
This is one of those reasons why we don't listen to talk show hosts and comedians and actors, and we actually listen to people who have credentials in this field.
Well,
not knocking Steve Harvey.
I'm not knocking Steve Harvey.
He does have some sound advice when it comes to certain things, but the 90-day rule, he made it sound like it was this one-size-fits-all.
Right. That's the issue that I have with it. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. But what I will say about the 90-day rule, or what I will say about women waiting a little bit, having a guy hold out a little bit longer, is that it does play into a woman's favor a little bit more. Because regardless if a guy is interested or not, a guy is not going to turn away sex, regardless if he only sees you as a friend, regardless of how he feels about you. It's just not going to happen. Guys are designed and built to penetrate, and I don't mean that in any type of nasty way or anything like that. But you hear me talk a lot about guys in purpose, drive, and mission. It's their job to penetrate the world, and it's their job to go out and conquer. And if they have an opportunity to, quote unquote, conquer and to penetrate the woman that they're with, they're going to take it, because that's just how they're designed. That's how they're built.
Now, do you have a conversation about the act before you decide to do it? Like, are there do's and don'ts that you should probably cover, like bases you should cover before you jump in bed with somebody?
Once again, not a one-size-fits-all program. I think anytime you're able to communicate, you should communicate. If you are someone who maybe had a bad experience, or you're worried that maybe he said something on one of your dates and you're worried about him pulling out the toys and this and that, or something that you don't feel comfortable with, then absolutely you should have a conversation with him or her, for that matter. This isn't just all about the women. But overall, for me personally, I prefer to being able to just go on with the flow. But if there's some concerns there, you absolutely should have a conversation, because you want to see and you want to know if that person holds the same values that you do.
Speaking of values, then, a woman isn't looked upon differently if she maybe sleeps with a man on the first date, or what as society we've deemed publicly as being too soon?
I think everyone listening, everyone involved has seen and heard of situations where people have slept together on the first date and they stay together. It happens. We've also seen where people wait till marriage and they don't stay together, or they do stay together. There's not going to be, you're not going to hear from me any type of one-size-fits-all program when it comes to sex. I hear all the time women will come to me and they'll ask me, well, I slept with him on the first date, does that mean it's over? I don't know. Like, you got to date a little bit and see if there's any type of chemistry. What else is there? I will say, however, that if you do sleep with a guy on the first date or sleep with him early, it does decrease your chances. He could only be out for sex. You could sleep with him on the first date and then ruin it down the line later on. Or maybe he runs it down the line later on. The problem with sleeping with someone on the first date, and that isn't necessarily just because you slept with him on the first date, it's because you just don't know each other very well. There could be some subtleties about yourself that he doesn't like, and vice versa. And the only way that you come across those subtleties is for you to spend time together.
Now, for these podcast episodes, as you know, our listeners will know, I have been surveying friends, acquaintances, different groups of women to get some questions beforehand so that we can discuss them in each episode. Mm-hmm. This episode, I thought I should probably talk to the guys too. I should probably get some questions from men, right, and see where their minds are at. One question I got was, as a man, mm-hmm, and in the dating phase, mm-hmm, do you put on your best performance for the first go-round, or do you save it so as to not set the bar too early?
Well, to me, it
like, do you make her wait? Do you kind of create a build up?
Well, I particularly don't like leaving my ace in the hole. Like, I'm not, you're probably going to have a better opportunity of getting a second round if you give her the best round to begin with. But I always say mix it up. Maybe one day you give her the ace in the beginning, and then the next time you kind of flip things back and forth. With sex in particular in the dating phase, you want to mix it up as much. Actually, let me take that back. Anytime you want to mix it up as much as possible, so then things don't get stale, things don't get boring, and to keep things alive and spicy in the bedroom.
So, well, that actually brings me to the next male question, mm-hmm, which was, when you're in a relationship, do you always need to bring your A game, or is it okay to just show up? And this goes for women too, actually. When you're in a long-term relationship, obviously sex is going to be a regular part of that relationship, and the two parties in the relationship have lives and have careers, and maybe they share children, and then things get really busy, and sometimes sex gets lost along the way. So is it important to just satisfy that need and just keep it consistent and just keep doing it just to make sure you're doing it? Or should you try to throw down at every time, set the mood, candles, put on a big show?
You can't put on a production every single time. It's just not going to happen. there are going to be times where you're going to want to just throw her down on the couch and take her to Pound Town, and vice versa. You're going to want...
You did not just say Pound Town.
Yeah, I did say Pound Town. So you have to remember that a lot of these guys, especially if they're our age, if they have any sort of history with women, there was a point in time where these guys were dogs. And with that being said, when guys are single, they typically have sex regularly, but with multiple different women, with different times, different places, and so therefore sometimes they're going to want different positions. Sometimes it might be a quickie, sometimes it might be candles lit all over the place and something a little more romantic. And when you are with someone and you're in a committed relationship, you should try to keep it as diverse, as I guess I could say, for lack of better words, as you possibly can in the bedroom, or in the kitchen, or in the bathroom, or in the shower, or in the living room on the rug. All right,
we get it.
But you get what I'm saying, because it's not just about what the guy wants; it's also about what your woman wants. Because you go into relationships to give, and so therefore you have to talk to your significant other and figure out what it is that they want as well.
Well, speaking of giving, what about when a guy wants you to give a little too much? Like when they put on the pressure for you to engage in sexual acts that you are just not ready for or not even interested in. Is that a deal breaker if they bring that sort of offer to you?
It depends. So if something is that convicting to you, that comes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. It's a value. So I'm going to use threesomes as an example because that's very common that a woman's not going to want to do that, but yet it's a male fantasy.
I don't know which woman hasn't heard that BS before.
With guys, that's a fantasy, typically a young fantasy. Therefore, I'm just going to flat out say it, and I'm sorry if this was a guy that wrote this question, but I'm going to revoke your player card on this. It's a very immature fantasy. Typically, guys grow out of it. Now, with that being said, if there is something that you and your significant other disagree on, see if there is any sort of compromise that you guys could come up with. Now, I'm going to use, once again, the threesome as an example, and you hold a strong value that you don't want any other women or any other men, for that matter, in your bedroom aside from your significant other. Maybe there's an opportunity for you guys to watch a certain quote-unquote movie together, and maybe that satisfies his fantasy. If he or she feels like they can't go on without fulfilling that dream or that fantasy, and there's nothing that you can, and you're holding strong with that value, then it might be a point where it's a deal breaker. Maybe there's something something else they're trying to bring into the bedroom, some sort of toy, or they want to do something that makes you feel undervalued or underappreciated. And they hold strong on that and they won't let it go. Then it might be. But the only way that you're going to find out is to have a conversation with your significant other.
I spoke to one woman who has a slightly different issue than what we started this conversation with, which was the 90-day rule. She has decided that she wants to make her next gentleman wait a year.
Okay.
Is it possible for a man to commit to that?
It is possible. Once again, and I know I keep saying this, that person has to have the same value. If he feels that sex is not as important to him and he can wait a year, then that's fine. However, you need to have a very direct conversation with him and set correct expectations. You can't dilly-dally. You can't beat around the bush. You have to tell him exactly what the expectations are. And I want to be clear that just because you make a guy wait a year doesn't mean that's going to last forever. If you want to make him wait a year because you've put your heart out on the line that way before, that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making him wait a year. There's nothing wrong with making him wait till marriage. But you need to have a very clear conversation, and you need to know and you need to see what his reaction is and make sure that he holds those same values as well.
Now, we're talking a lot about, sex and dating, sex in the relationship. What about when the sex in the relationship goes wrong in that there is an infidelity. A lot of women that I surveyed wanted to know about cheating. You talked a lot about having a healthy sexual relationship and some of the things that can be done, mixing it up, all of that. But sometimes it seems as though men will have everything from their woman, or what she feels like she's giving is everything at home, and they'll still go elsewhere and they'll still cheat with another woman who seems like a polar opposite to their, significant other. Maybe she's a polar opposite in the bedroom. Maybe she cooks and the girlfriend doesn't cook, all those things. What is it about that? Why do men do that?
And women do it too. So I'm going to answer this.
Right. Let me clarify. Yeah. Yes. Women cheat too.
This question came from a woman. However, I want to clarify that this question is more broad because it happens to on both ends of the spectrum. Men and women at times might desire something different. Maybe they say that they're happy at home. Maybe the woman, maybe the significant other, I should say, is doing everything in their power to show that person that they are loved. But there's two people in this relationship. Just because they're doing a lot of things doesn't mean that it's perceived from the other person as love. So therefore, they're walking around unfulfilled, and it leaves a door open for someone to step in. The other part that I wanted to say, the other point I wanted to bring out with this is that some women, some men are just going to cheat, period. There's nothing that you can do about it. They just have...
It's part of their DNA.
It's part of their DNA, so to speak. They are... But overall, they just have a very low level of integrity. So they are going to cheat. There's some things that you can see and some red flags that you should see in the beginning to see if they are the type of person that would cheat. But there's some people, they are just designed to lie and cheat, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the reason why in those situations I tell people, walk away and never look back.
So in conclusion, a lot of the women I talked to said that, or they didn't say this in so many words, but everything that they asked and all the conversation we had, it sounds like everybody wants to make sure that they are not put in a booty call zone, but they are put in the wifey zone. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to be known for or saved in a guy's phone as, or just looked to for sex and sex only. Mm-hmm. They want to do that act in a committed relationship with their partner. And they want to achieve. They want to achieve that.
The concern that I hear with this question is, how do I have sex and not get my heart broken? When I hear this, and this is a very common concern, very common question, is people don't want to take the risk, or they want to find love, they want to find a relationship without any risk. The only thing you can really do is minimize the risk, but there's always going to be some risk involved. The way that you avoid going to the booty call zone, which is the woman's version of the friend zone, so to speak, mm-hmm. is you have to read his actions, and you have to allow for his actions to speak loudly to you. If he's not taking you out on dates and not valuing your time and only wants to spend time with you in the house, at home, and doesn't want to, is not progressing in any way in terms of taking you out, going places, doing things, and showing that he wants to spend more time with you, then it looks like you're going to end up being a booty call.
Like the music you're hearing? Check out Jordan J. River on SoundCloud. Our cover art was designed by Kashta Media. Listen to Crazy Love Stories on SoundCloud and iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe.
And there's nobody on this planet that I know that wants to be put in that category.